One of you is about to become Miss Universe. The other will be the first runner-up, an important position, because if for any reason Miss Universe cannot fulfill her obligations for the entire year, the first runner-up becomes Miss Universe. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I shall read the name of the first runner-up and then Miss Universe. The first runner-up is Miss USA. Miss New Zealand is Miss Universe.
It's the rise and the fall of Miss New Zealand. They had it all. Beauty and the fame, more than a pretty face. Beauty queen, wild and free. Miss Universe 1983. Lorraine with her bright blonde hair. All the world could really do was there. When she walked that walk and she talked that talk, with all that style, all that grace. Yeah, she never stopped till she reached the top, with a smile on her face. It's the rise and the fall of Miss New Zealand. They had it all. Beauty and the fame, more than a pretty face. Blast from the past, got the runner-up from 1963. Elaine Micall brought the boys to their knees. She was stunning, had them running in the palm of her hand. It's the rise and the fall of Miss New Zealand. They had it all. Beauty and the fame, more than a pretty face. Last but not least, we got the fan favorite, Delyse Nottle. She traveled all around the world with a gorgeous face. Yeah, she looks like Grace Kelly. When she walked that walk and she talked that talk, she was so amazing. It's the rise and the fall of Miss New Zealand. Miss New Zealand. They had it all. Beauty and the fame, more than a pretty face. It's the rise and the fall of Miss New Zealand. Miss New Zealand. They had it all. Beauty and the fame, more than a pretty face.
Have you ever asked yourself, why are we so obsessed with beauty? So what made the Miss New Zealand contest so special?
So Miss New Zealand, when I was a kid, was a family sit-down moment.
It was an era when the Miss New Zealand was quite a normal thing to do.
As a young woman growing up, it was quite a thing.
It was like watching Barbies on television. Back then, you wanted to be that princess. You wanted to have the crown and the sash. Everyone wanted that.
I imagined that crown on my head, that prize money in my pocket, and myself strutting down that runway.
It was a bit, I suppose it's like watching a royal wedding. Everyone got together and commentated on what people were wearing and how everybody looked. And I can remember as a kid just being kind of wowed by the whole thing, and it seemed like such a massive production.
It's actually a fact that more people watched the Miss New Zealand contest in the early 1980s than the wedding of Prince Charles and Lady Diana.
They were golden moments.
Back in the day, it was like, yes, we lined up as judges and the girls lined up and it was all very kosher and everything was very elegant and the girls were treated really well.
So 1961 was a special year for Miss New Zealand because it was the very first year of the show.
5 anxious girls, outwardly composed and exposed, offer themselves to the extremely critical gaze of the audience and the judges. The judges note the finer points from every angle. They're not allowed to touch these offerings, though.
My mum was actually Miss Northland. She won Miss Northland in January of that year out at Orewa Beach, very glamorous. And she ended up in the Miss New Zealand contest. And she needed a really sexy swimsuit for that, so she knitted her own.
To knit your own swimsuit, and it looks absolutely incredible.
And she came second. She would love to have won, but unfortunately when they asked her what her dreams were for the future, she said, "I'm getting married in November."
She should have won, my God, yes. Fully.
Huh?
For sure.
Actually, I think she was quite lucky, because if she had won, I probably wouldn't even be here.
Who looked like Bridget Bardot? Elaine Micall. Who looked like Elaine Micall? Bridget Bardot.
Wow. I actually haven't heard that before, but it's lovely. Thank you very much.
Well, Elaine was stunningly beautiful, for one thing. She's a natural beauty.
To me, Elaine's beauty was her colouring.
Pretty famous in New Zealand. Real famous, yeah.
Because I was a youngster and I just thought, oh, she's gorgeous. And I looked up to her before I even was old enough to be a judge.
My mother and father thought she was just the beauty, and she really was, very Grace Kelly.
That cool Hitchcock blonde.
Elaine had a very modern sort of beauty. It's timeless. If you put her sort of beauty in the Miss World contest today, it would still do well.
Mum forced me into going into it. I think she always dreamed that someone in the family might be famous in some way. I was doing a little bit of modelling in Wellington, and she said, "Look, why don't you go in for Miss New Zealand?" And I said, "Oh, Mum, I don't think I'd be a suitable candidate." For a start, no one travelled the way they do today. Girls travel. We were still all brought up that we were going to be married and be mothers, and that was it. All these girls that were in the contest were very natural. I mean, no one had their teeth done. No one had Botox or fillers or had their boobs done. My parents were absolutely delighted. My father was the eldest of 11 children, grew up during the Depression, so he had very little of anything. And to have his daughter become Miss New Zealand was just I can't describe. I think he was more excited than I was. We all met, and we got to know one of the girls, got to know one another, and then we went off in a bus all over the country, the entertainers and the girls. As you can imagine, it was quite hilarious with the entertainers and the girls all travelling together. Quite a unique experience for me, because I was only 18 and found it quite hilarious, and I learnt a lot and grew up a lot on that trip. Television, I think, was just beginning in New Zealand, and it was very early days for television, and so Miss New Zealand was really quite something. I got a photo somewhere of the minute it was announced, and I have to say I was terribly excited. I think that was more exciting than being runner-up to Miss World, to be honest, because I knew what was lying ahead. They asked me about the All Blacks, and I had heard that they'd been defeated.
Have you been following the All Blacks rugby tour here?
Well, I have, but I heard, unfortunately, that they lost here.
Only once, though. They'll be delighted to meet you, I'm sure.
I'm hoping to meet them.
Which was really extremely bad in those days, because the All Blacks were, and still are, kings of the rugby world. As you can see, the girls around me were all lovely, so, you know, I was very excited to get down to the final 7, to be honest. That was possibly even more exciting than getting second. To thought, oh my goodness, I'm in the final 7 of Miss World. It is an international contest. You are on an international stage, and it was pretty big time in those days.
Peter Sellers wouldn't tell us anything, but could it be Miss New Zealand, a 19-year-old from Wellington?
Peter Sellers was actually a judge in 1963, and he leaked to the press that he voted for Elaine to win.
Runner-up to Miss World, Miss New Zealand.
And Miss New Zealand gets £500 and the silver trophy.
The Duke of Bedford picked me as the winner because he came up afterwards and told me that he felt I was his winner, and he was very sad that I hadn't won.
So we found out through the newspapers that Elaine was runner-up to Miss World, and it was very exciting for us as a country.
I won £1,000, and I came back to New Zealand, and in those days you had to have overseas funds to buy a car. And of course I left my £1,000 in England, and I was able to buy a brand new car, which I was terribly excited about.
Bob Hope kind of had an obsession with Miss World winners, and he always took the winner on his world tour performing to troops.
I am very, very happy to be here at this cattle market tonight. Moo! No, it's quite a cattle market. I've been back there checking calves.
It was the first time that Bob Hope had asked a runner-up to Miss World to go on his tour. Normally it had been a Miss World, and I was extremely flattered, but I just met my husband and I wanted to come home. Big mistake. Well, I had a 12-month contract, and during that period you toured all the time. I had a lot of work and spent the entire year travelling.
I hadn't met Elaine until she came to Auckland as Miss New Zealand, and then of course married John Daly, and they became a very high-profile couple.
The day I got married, it was unbelievable. It was just the whole city stopped and traffic stopped, and yes, it was, really quite different, very glamorous.
In 1969, there was a new contest that was looking for a New Zealand entrant, and a young, fresh 20-year-old Paula Ryan was about to have her life changed forever.
I have to tell you something. Mum was actually a Rose of Tralee.
I saw Paula's cover on the Woman's Weekly, and she just looked so amazing in her Vinca Lucas gown, and she's like the blonde version of Audrey Hepburn.
I can only imagine how she looked in person as a 20-year-old.
I didn't enter the Rose of Tralee. A photographer friend of mine who was Ewan Sargentson, he was a landscape fashion photographer as well as a Formula One racing photographer for Caltex. And he said, I think you should enter this thing. You get a free trip to Ireland. I said, no, I'm not. And then Barbara Lee, fashion friend and also fashion designer, I'll make the frock. He said, I'll take the photographs. You're going in. So they entered me. And I thought, well, give it a go, because they'd done all the work, basically. And I won the New Zealand one, and then ended up going to Ireland. And it was fabulous, because you end up with all these relations that come from Tipperary, Irish Ryans, saying, we're related to you. And so it was just fun. Very different than a Miss New Zealand competition.
It's no surprise that Bridget followed in her mother's footsteps.
Well, Bridget thought she'd give it a go, and so we were all supporting her. Why not? Because it's a trip to Ireland, and you'll meet all the rallies, and all these people will come out of the woodwork. As a result, the whole family turned up. We all went to Ireland as well.
I thought it would be quite fun to go to Ireland.
During the Rose of Tralee week, it goes up to 50,000 people. They're sleeping on the streets, they're in tents, they're everywhere. It's just a buzz. It's a bit like the Rugby World Cup. It's like crazy in Ireland.
But I was on a float, like going down the main street. There was like 30,000, 40,000 people in the crowd. It's just kind of amazing. They do that for America's Cup.
You need to know a lot about your own country, because they're interested, and you're interviewed quite often on network television in Ireland.
Yeah, it was a great, fun life experience, which, we never get to do again, especially in your 40s.
But Bridget did a presentation of her photography, and it was fantastic. She was proud of the All Blacks, and of course the crowd roared as soon as she started talking All Blacks and Irish rugby. I mean, it was just, she just had them eating out of her hand, because she was there understanding their passion for rugby.
They get you in a room and they do like a group conversation with the judges, and the first question, I'll never forget this, they asked was, what do you think was the world's greatest invention? So I said, the waterbed. The waterbed.
Paula was second in the world competition, and 20 years later, Bridget was second.
Year after year, designers racked their brains to come up with a new national costume for New Zealand. Some were a hit, and some left the nation scratching their heads.
Now, Captain Cook. Now, that's not generally a feminine outfit, but I love this take of it. It's actually super cool.
Just tailored to fit me. It was absolutely stunning and it looked amazing on TV.
Captain Chook.
I'm getting a real Adamant vibe or New Romantics.
Look at those little shoes. Top marks there.
Regarding the national costume, here we are representing New Zealand in another country. You would think that somewhere in the kitty that there will be something for some feathers. You know, I was wanting a big feather thing. I was wanting beautiful poise, maybe some golden poise.
When I saw Tracy in those cat's ears, I just about died.
Oh, it's a golden kiwi.
Kind of cool. Really out there.
I'm not really getting a golden kiwi vibe. I'm getting more of a crunchy bar vibe.
I don't know, Lo said, but it looks good on stage.
But mine was a very sleek, elegant gown.
Miss Downes really lucked out in this section. She looks pretty darn fabulous.
All down the front were the most beautiful handmade silk kowhai flowers. And then it was just a dead straight skirt with a big slit up the side. And I felt really, really great in that dress.
Coming out on stage and doing my poi performance was awesome because there was only about 20 of us or less that got chosen to do that individual dance, and being able to wear something that represented my country, my heritage.
It just looked amazing. It was cream, it was that fine wool with a beautiful cape and screen printing of ferns all around it and all around the bottom of the dress.
You know, I wore the feathers, and I think the back of my national costume was beautiful. You know, she'd put the glass corals and sort of blue peacocks, and it had all the black feathers.
I photographed Holly in that outfit, and it was absolutely a work of art. She totally was one of the best national costumes that year at Miss Universe.
The white feather that I wore in my hair, what that represented was my Māori tribe, Te Atiawa.
And my national costume was the sailor's outfit from KZ7. KZ7 were, you know, they were winning. It was fabulous. America's Cup was a big deal.
How appropriate that she's dressed as a sailor. I love it.
Very easy to wear my sneakers, my shorts, my wee hat, jersey and a singlet, whereas some of the girls had these outrageous, massive outfits.
I think Miss Aruba was actually dressed as a chicken that year, so Linda got off quite lightly.
I know that in the past there had been some very interesting choices for New Zealand's national costumes.
New Zealand's national costume for the Miss World contest in London next month may invite a bit of a roasting. Our Miss New Zealand, Sherry the Fleming Burrow, will parade for the judges dressed as a sheep.
With so much interest in New Zealand lamb right now, and when they said something for the national costume with 70 million sheep, I thought, now that they're exporting live ones, I thought, well, here we've got a great glamorous live one to export.
Not sure what her message is there.
Is she wearing a sandwich, like a white bread sandwich? That's Kiwi.
Oh, and cut. That was a very economical year.
Come on, we can get more original. We can get boom, vivacious, but not that. Oh, that's Sherry La Fleming Burrow. She can slap me any day. I'm waiting for it.
I loved her look. I always like a bad girl. She was always in the press, and she actually did really well at Miss World and placed in the top 10.
She just demanded presence. It was, look at me. I might be shorter, but I'm pretty fabulous.
Sherry, at 5'4", you are said to be perhaps a little on the short side for beauty contests. How do you think that will count against you or for you when you get to London?
Up to now, it hasn't, affected me too badly, I don't think. But I'm going to give it my best shot. I really am. 5'4" or not, I don't think height should count in beauty quiz.
I love the Kiwi accents. You know, that's one thing that you see and you just go, that's great. New Zealand. Go New Zealand.
Going overseas, I'm really happy to have my Kiwi accent. I think that a lot of people like the way that we speak.
It's a great honour to be chosen as Miss New Zealand for 1949, and I assure you that I'll do my very best to do honour to our country while I'm away.
I love it. I love it. It just makes me smile. Anywhere in the world, you can hear a Kiwi talking. It's fabulous.
Yeah, 1974 was a different era.
it was different for women, basically. It was a man's world.
Sue Nicholson was a lovely Miss New Zealand. She reminded me quite a lot of Elaine.
I discovered Sue and at the Easter show.
And that's where I met Elaine. She was coordinating the show, and every night they'd have heats, and I was standing in the audience and they started to push me up to the stage. Before I knew it, there I was, bewildered.
We were scouting around the show to find girls that would be suitable, and I came across Sue and I thought, oh my goodness, what a lovely girl.
Even 10 years later, we were asked to do the cover of the Women's Weekly, and it was still popular then. My father was exceedingly proud. He had put my name in to the Miss Auckland, so to see it go through to the Miss New Zealand was just amazing. He'd always called me his little Miss New Zealand as a tiny girl. I remember being a favourite, and you don't really see yourself like that, but that's how it was reported in the newspapers. But you're just there to do your best and hope for the best if you can, really. I didn't really think I had a chance of winning. I really didn't. So it was just an enormous shock. Could I possibly have won this? And I think that's really how I felt. It was unbelievable. I won a car and a $5,000 wool wardrobe. So most of the times I had to wear wool, because of one of the sponsors being the Wool Board.
From the Olympic Games city to the Commonwealth Games country, Miss New Zealand Sue Nicholson, who broke her jaw just 9 weeks ago filming a television commercial. Looking great tonight.
I was riding a motorbike. It was an ad for cheese for the Dairy Board, one of our sponsors. And I went round the first tape fine, the second tape, the tyre hit a stone, and off I went over a cliff onto the rocks below. So that was the end of the advertisement, sadly, and I was rushed off to the doctor. The end result, broken jaw. I was wired together for 10 weeks. I couldn't work as Miss New Zealand, sadly, and the big worry was trying to put on weight, knowing that the contest was coming up. So I was trying to drink Complan and Sustagen, and Kevin and David were very, very encouraging to try and get me up to speed for when I went, because once those wires were off, I was ready to depart. I'd never been out of the country before, it's all very daunting, and Elaine was there to see me off, and that was the last I remember of my goodbyes. Goodbye, New Zealand. Goodbye, Elaine. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me, and I'm going to really do my best. In 1974, the Miss World contest had over 20 million viewers in the UK alone. As the big night approached, Sue was considered a major favourite by the UK press. Yes, and what happened was they bet on you and gave each girl odds to win the crown, and I found it quite strange, and I didn't really know what to make of it, to be honest. Well, there were 70 of us, and at one point, press got together, picked their favourites, so 10 of us went outside and had a photo shoot. And I guess I kind of had a little inkling, a tiny inkling, but it wasn't really sure,
Here's Sue Nicholson. She's 22 years old. A green-eyed blonde. She stands at 5 feet 6.5. That's without the boots. 34, 24, 34.
Sue placed 7th overall at Miss World, which was an amazing achievement because back then, Miss New Zealand's didn't really get anywhere.
When it became time to be my end of year, it was quite a relief in some ways to pass it on to the next girl. Even though I'd enjoyed it immensely, it was time. That was enough for me. Absolutely. It was enough. The swimsuit competition, with every red-blooded male sitting in his armchair, bear in hand, waiting to judge the girls for himself.
The swimsuit section, nobody really enjoys the swimming section. Here you are in your swimsuit, trying to suck everything in, stand there, and you're in high heels, you've got to walk along, be elegant, and look the way you should. But it's not an easy ask, that's for sure.
You just have to get out there and pretend that, you just do it.
Very nerve-wracking because we were given these shoes with heels this high, and of course you've got to walk down 20 stairs. it's not an easy thing to do. And, you know, again, yes, live TV.
We had to be natural, and you weren't allowed to have any enhancements at all. Well, that's all changed today. Everybody's got enhancements of some description. But that was quite an important part.
Yeah, it was forbidden, but I think there may have been a few from different countries, so who knows?
I was used to being up on stage in swimwear, and I'm a bit of a show-off anyway, so that doesn't really bother me.
They did inspect your swimwear to make sure that everything was you.
To do a bikini section, you can do anything. And if you can do a bikini section in Miss Universe with 89 other beautiful girls, then there's not really a lot that's going to faze you, I don't think.
And you look back and you think, oh, I don't think that even looks good now when you look at it. So.
It was sometimes, at times, cringeworthy. Well, I'm proud of my appearance. I feel that I should be proud. Every woman should be proud of their appearance.
I like to think that I've got an alter ego. You know how like Beyonce's got her Sasha Fierce? There's me, Jess, very elegant and poised. But when I hit the stage, I feel like I kind of transform and I become my alter ego.
I loved doing the swimwear. That was my favourite bit because it was just so awesome to have you. You were just like, with your...
I was nervous.
I know, no, you did so well.
Oh, look, Tracy's taught Lol the sidestep, and would you believe I actually remember when she did that?
A lot of people would say, oh, well, it's, you know, just like a cattle contest, but I think it should be part of it. I don't think it's hurtful at all.
So Holly was being picked on for being 5'6", but the year before, Olivia, who was Miss USA, won Miss Universe, and she was 5'6".
Holly Cassidy, gorgeous. What a beauty.
I was never going to be tall, so I did what I could with my body, and I'm fairly muscly toned. I've got that part Māori gene that gives me that look. So I stuck with that, and I got really lean and trim. I nearly had a six-pack.
I don't know anybody who trains harder than her for that body.
To the eye of people watching Miss Universe, they think of really tall, skinny, not really much muscle tone. And so, yeah, I got crucified for that actually online. I got a lot of bullying from it, but it didn't faze me.
My year, Miss China, who was a hot favourite, was too tall because she was so tall and gorgeous, and there were people online calling her a freak.
That is disgusting behaviour. Bullying on an international platform.
But yeah, there's a lot of prep that went into that, having that body. I wish I had it back now.
So shorter girls like Holly proved you didn't need to be 6 foot to win that crown.
So the girls would appear on the screen in their swimwear, and then all of a sudden a digital mark out of 10 would come up on the screen for the viewers at home. It's hard to believe that happened in today's world.
It's weird, isn't it, to be scored like that as well, like, you know, 7 out of 10 or whatever they say to you. It's just weird.
I think to anyone who says that Miss New Zealand is sexist, I think that they have a lot of learning to do.
Well, I didn't really feel it was sexist at all. You know, it was my choice, and I think if I thought that way, I probably wouldn't have gone in it.
If you've entered into the pageant with the intention to impress men, and your look and your value is based on whether men think you're attractive, then you'll find the whole experience sexist.
I believe if you want to do that, you go for it. If you want to put yourself into the beauty pageant world and have a crack at it, good on you.
No, I've got daughters. I'm not sure I want them to be judged on the way they look. I want them to be judged on the way they are as a person.
I think it has been sexist in the past, most definitely, and I think we've learnt from that. I think moving forward, as we have with everything in life, you know, it's now 2021. It's very different to the 80s.
We were out the back when the protesters came, so we heard the commotion, but we didn't see any of it.
Thank you, Peter, and good evening, everybody. Well, despite the slight interruption, I'll carry on. The rewards and prestige of being a Miss New Zealand are highly sought after.
My mum thought there was a bomb going off. She was like, we had no idea what was happening. She just said there was all this noise, commotion, security coming on. She said something was thrown on the stage. And
that's just awful. I mean, totally disrespectful of the moment. This is Miss New Zealand.
To be totally broken down by protesters and the change of society, where they said, well, we don't want
people to be rated 1 to 10 by judges.
We arrived in the bus to protesters at the Royal Albert Hall with flower bombs. So it was a bit tricky about where we were going to enter and just to be one step ahead of them. So we entered through this side door, but just at the last minute they got cottoned onto it, and there they were with the bombs.
We had protesters outside the theatre. We didn't know about it at the time. And some protesters had actually got into the theatre. They were posing as press.
I just think with anything these days, you're always going to have people protesting.
Shock horror, one of them got up to the stage and threw her pencil onto the stage.
Men often have a completely different viewpoint when it comes to who's the most beautiful woman.
I was dishing out scores of 3 out of 10, and the organisers came to me and told me off.
It's in the eye of the beholder.
The thing about judging Miss New Zealand is I had a no arseholes policy.
The interview with the judges, that was really important.
I guess they want someone who will work hard, do the promos for them.
I think they were looking for a representative that could hold themselves on a world stage, that would have the confidence to be able to handle an international competition.
I think personality definitely does count. There has to be more than beauty.
I would pick a girl with a great personality over looks any day.
I think there were about 12 judges. I knew that this was it. And I remember coming out and thinking, that felt really good.
Well, I was very nervous about that. The thing that worried me the most was having to speak, because they asked questions. We were in England for 2 weeks and they're watching you the whole time to see how you are coping with things and what sort of person you are, whether you get angry, whether you're frightened.
So what happens in Miss World and Miss Universe is they judge you based on the behind the scenes noise that goes on, a narrative of the actual person. So when we had Top Model, we would actually know who was playing up. So it wasn't just the performance. You could see who was invested, who was actually meant to win.
One of the questions they actually ask you during the interview is, who do you think your biggest competition is? Because they want to get from the other contestants who they believe deserves to win.
There were some massive blunders. There were girls like Jeanette Williams, Kirstine Price, Jessica Palmer. None of them won the crown.
Not just a beauty contest. I feel quite sad when I hear that said, because there's a lot more to it, particularly when you have to start touring.
Eileen Ford was one of the judges. She did give me some advice on going into modelling. She also gave me a very good tip, because she was the very first judge I saw, which was pretty scary. She said to always look people in the eye. So I took that with me all the way through.
What we look for in a winner is someone who works hard, someone who can speak really well, and someone who holds themselves really well.
The convener of the judging panel is Paula Ryan. She's the editor and publisher of Fashion New Zealand.
Because we met the girls for 2 or 3 days, and we really knew by the final televised event, we really knew who it was going to be, unless that girl let us down on the night.
My mum would come out, and I remember thinking she was the most beautiful woman in the world as a little girl sitting in her pyjamas at home watching.
By 1980, the New Zealand judges had worked out it was better to pick a winner with fashion model looks. Delyse Nottle was about to put New Zealand on the map in a very competitive year.
Delyse is an absolute iconic legend.
In the 80s, I knew Delyse very well because we worked together just about every season. She was delightful, professional at all times, and one of the most popular young models there was in that era.
Delyse Nottle was the only Miss New Zealand that became an international model. It's not surprising to me. She has that real international beauty.
She was one of the first ones that put us on the map. Well, Mum used to cuddle me and sit me outside when I was really small, and she always said that I would be Miss New Zealand one day. Miss Mount Maunganui, Miss Tauranga, Miss Bay of Plenty, I won those as well. So it was a good practice ground to go into the bigger contest. Things just took off because, winning the Miss Universe New Zealand contest, you're catapulted into the public eye, and everyone really wants to use you for work because you are
not just a pretty face, but you're also a personality as well. My mum, when she was watching, she said that Peter Sinclair, who was the compere at the time, described me as gorgeous, and apparently I was the only one that was described as gorgeous.
She didn't even have to try. She had everything going for her because she had all the looks and the traits of a model, but also had the sparkling personality. So when she competed overseas, she was a surefire winner.
No one has won any major prize in Miss Universe at all at that stage, so you don't even think that you're going to get anywhere. But I did know that the Miss Universe Corp did like me. They liked how I presented myself, they liked how I spoke, they liked how I interacted with people.
She was garnering a lot of press attention in Seoul, Korea that year. I think Miss USA and her were probably the two favorites going into it. I think Miss Sweden was also well liked.
Delyse won Miss Photogenic in 1980. No surprises there.
Delyse had a great bone structure that really lent itself to editorial and great makeup, and she had strong jaw and great cheekbones.
The girls who get in front of the camera the most will be the ones that are seen. Let me in. I'm from New Zealand. I'm the furthest country in the south of the world. So Delyse would barge in like the little fox terrier, and she did it.
All the girls sort of knew who was up for Miss Photogenic, and they all knew it was between myself and Miss Australia. And they were all coming up to me saying, "Oh, we hope you win, we hope you win." And I thought, "Oh no, I'm not going to win. I'm never going to win that, don't be stupid." But I did. But I remember she had her mum there in the audience, and I could see her mum leaning forward, as if to say, "My daughter's going to win." And I'm thinking, "Yeah, she probably is." But she didn't. We trounced the Australians.
Delyse just had a unique way of sort of owning the stage. I guess it was to do with her early training in dancing.
She had obviously the figure, blonde hair, just everything that probably was wanted back then.
I remember being given a couple of car registration plates because my dad collected them at the time. They were presented to me by the Mayor of Seoul, and as a thank you, I just decided to sing Pokari Kari Ana. And but looking back now, I'm thinking, did I really do that? Did I actually stand up there on stage and just sing as a thank you to the people of Korea? I must have been mad.
The thing about Delyse is she has never, ever failed to do her best and be her best at anything that she's tried.
Daryl, he was wanting to be a dress designer.
I told her I want to be a designer, and I showed her what then must have been some very bad sketches of dresses.
He was only 12 at the time, and apparently I was really, really encouraging to him because he would have given up his dream. And he said it wasn't until he spoke to me and I spoke to him about him following his dream that he actually decided that he would do.
Sometimes as adults, not children, but as adults, we can diminish someone just because we want to be honest. Delyse was very open and uplifting and, you've got to keep trying, you've got to get training. Sure. She wasn't saying this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. Instead, what she was saying was, you've got to take this talent forward.
I was very proud wearing the New Zealand sash. People didn't really know where New Zealand was when I entered in 1980. And I felt that New Zealand hadn't even been thought of as a proper contender.
Next to join the group is Miss New Zealand.
When I was named in the top 12, I just couldn't believe it. I came running down the steps. God knows how I didn't fall flat on my face.
We were all on edge, just thinking, please, go for it, New Zealand. And she was so poised and so professional and so gorgeous. We were so proud.
I think the whole in New Zealand was wishing for her to win this competition, and I knew the results before I went home.
Dad had heard the results on the radio in the morning, and he always seemed to know what was going to happen next.
Neil's eyes would be watching the competition, and his eyes are as big as saucers.
You're just bowled away by the moment. Everything just happens so quickly that you don't really get a chance to even get nervous.
What would you say to a friend who asked your advice about entering the Miss Universe pageant?
I would say it would be a great opportunity if you could go in it, because you have the chance to meet so many girls from so many different nations. You have the chance to become friendly with them, learn a lot about these girls, and also you represent your country, and that's the most important thing.
Please, please let me go further, please, please. But not really believing that I would.
The second runner-up is Miss New Zealand. Well done.
So proud for my country because it was just such a big deal. It had been nearly 20 years since anyone had got anywhere near winning a major title, so I was just over the moon. Just couldn't believe it.
I've seen photos of her. She looks amazing. She's actually timeless, but she's wild.
I'll definitely carry on modelling. Why not? Why shouldn't we model in our 60s, 50s, 40s?
Every New Zealand girl wanted to look like Delyse, and I believe now every 60-year-old would love to look like Delyse.
I've worked with Delyse before and I'm just blown away by how beautiful she is.
Delyse was always my head girl, my head model. So beautiful, and still is at 61.
She looks mint.
As the winners jetted off to their international competition, they packed their bags with their designer ball gowns, made exclusively for them by top New Zealand designers.
Kevin Bachan designed my evening gown, and we worked together on it and just what would be the right look, what I wanted, and we just went for something simple and elegant. I will never forget that gown. Shooting the Kevin Bachan dress again after 35 years was really cool.
I rang up Linda and I said, go and find the dress in the box in the garage. And she said, are you joking? And I said, no, we don't muck around with things like this.
Squeezing into it, it's a bit of a tight fit, but it was good. It brought back a lot of memories, which is nice.
And she came down and I thought, oh my God, she got into it and she looked absolutely amazing.
It took me back to 1986.
It was very fine wool with mother of pearl sequins around the neck and the cuff. And when I walked at the knee, there was an inverted pleat with a bow at the top. And every time you kicked your left leg out, it would kick through.
When Lorraine walked out in that blue dress, 1983, epitomised with that big hair, that cobalt blue dress and the bow.
We all loved a good bow in the 80s, particularly on the back. And when Lorraine spun around and we saw that magnificent bow, we just knew it was the dress we all wanted.
The navy was such a great colour choice because it's softer than black.
And then when she came out, and she was that true New Zealand friendly, she acknowledged the child, the only one that did, and she had our hearts forever.
All I'm going to say is that it was just so reminiscent of the 80s.
The combination of the fabric, the detail, the design, her hair,
the full ball gown, the lace gloves. I loved it. At that age, at 19, I was just thrilled.
The hair was something else.
You know, I probably decided to tease my hair up even more to match the dress. We all were in frou-frou dresses, except Julie, Miss USA. She was in the very sophisticated, sleek beaded Bob Mackie number.
I kind of love a bit of frou-frou.
But the rest of us were in the big frou-frou dresses.
To me, Lorraine was a combination of a young Kim Basinger and Cheryl Ladd mixed. She kind of had the look for that year, that moment.
Everyone had fluffy, pretty, white and pink and pale blue dresses, and I felt my dress was just nice, just lovely, perfectly plain, black and simply cut.
Probably if I had chosen the dress, I wouldn't have chosen black, but it did actually make me stand out because people don't wear black in contests. So it was quite a timeless design as well. It wrapped over.
Well, it is petrifying when your gown still isn't completed. And I remember doing the practice run and my boob fell out on the stage. And I actually cried and I was like, this is not going to be finished. And I hated my gown.
But if I could do it again, I would have worn something that was more to my taste.
I was actually pretty happy with all my costumes, actually.
I think it's really, really hard coming from New Zealand sometimes because we don't have things that are that glamorous. And to be able to find someone to design something so stunning made me feel like I deserved to be on that stage next to all of the girls from countries that just create the most incredible gowns.
Around you, I wanna squeeze you, please you, I just can't get enough. And if you move real slow, I let it go.
Those dance numbers, they were a little bit complicated.
Choreographer immediately picks people that can dance to put in the front line of any TV show.
So Lorraine and I both attended the Julie Cotter dance classes, and Lorraine was amazing, of course, and in the front row, brilliant dancer, the best dancer there. And I was always in the back row copying Lorraine.
The first rehearsal, they said, who can dance? And my hand shot up and I got in the front.
Many of them had dancing experience, and so they're taught to project.
We had prepared for it for the last month. We're about to walk out on stage and just dance our little hearts away.
We were quite lucky at Miss World. We didn't have to do any big dance number.
Wherever I know I go, she goes. Wherever I go, you know you go. Wherever I know we both be goes, amigos.
I mean, what an absolute mindfuck.
Donny Osmond singing to me was like a dream come true. When he started singing to me, just to me, of course, looking into my eyes just dreamily, and I was just sort of dreamily looking back at him. It really was just my absolute dream. And even then I thought, wow, I really have made it.
All the top models of New Zealand entered the competition. All the agents put them in the competition.
They say, right, we've entered you into Miss Universe New Zealand. I go, oh, have you? Okay.
It was almost like a rite of passage.
The majority of entrants were models.
Getting that sort of calibre of woman entering ensured that you had a really good quality contestant.
There are a few that weren't modelling, but not really. I think that's basically how they got the talent pool.
If you were doing modelling, they would say, into these competitions, you'll get more work, more things will happen. So you did that, and it was just the natural progression that you did.
I was training to be a nurse, and I had the choice of McDonald's wearing the funny hat and a hopeless hourly rate, or I can get $30 an hour as a new face for June Daly Watkins. So I went, no, I think I'm going to do modelling.
Of course, Sandy did very well at modelling. I was actually her model booker in the mid-80s, and she was very well known for being Miss New Zealand, which really helped her get her foot in the door when it came to being a full-time model.
She worked every single day, sometimes twice a day.
And of course, what made her different in regards to her beauty was she was a brown-eyed blonde, which is really quite unique.
She was a solid commercial model.
Somehow the years have just flicked by so quickly. It's hard to imagine it's been 40 years, really.
Miss Universe New Zealand 1982 is Sandy Dexter.
I really don't know what made me stand out. You're so critical of yourself. At that age, you're so critical of everything you do. And then looking back, I think, well, actually, I could have probably done that a lot worse. That's not too bad. I loved the idea of going to South America if I had managed to win it. So things like that travel, that experience overseas was what really beckoned me to do it. As far as all the millions that people imagine that you gain from it, that's just a really nice fantasy. Yeah, looked at that on me. Daihatsu presented me with a Daihatsu charade.
Instead of winning the competition and driving around in a beautiful car and having all these beautiful prizes, first thing she did was sold the car, sold the prizes, and put her money into property.
In 1982, the Miss Universe competition in Peru was a very dangerous affair, with bomb threats and kidnappings, and many of the girls wanted to pull out, but Sandy stuck it out.
Interest from the public was just phenomenal there in Lima. the crowds would be rocking the bus. It was really quite out there. So because we were oblivious to the bomb threats and things going on there, looking back, I can see that what we thought was just rather overzealous, people interested in the pageant, realised that there was actually some quite dangerous people. I was really excited to have the opportunity to crown Lorraine because I knew her from the modelling days as well. I just knew that she had that potential.
Should I name my favourite Miss New Zealand? I wonder if you can guess. It's probably Lorraine Downes.
She was in my era, of course. I was thinking about modelling at that stage, and she was everything that she wanted to be.
I judged the year that Lorraine won, and she stood out.
I mean, she was iconic.
A really lovely lady. She's a representative of New Zealand that we can all be proud of.
She had everything going for her, and I think the most beautiful part was that she was quite unaware of how beautiful she was.
Mount Maunganui was like a second home to me because my family used to spend 3 weeks every year at the Mount. And there was 2 competitions back in the 80s. There was the Miss New Zealand and the Miss Universe New Zealand. I wanted to go to Australia. So as a contestant of the Miss Universe New Zealand, you received $500. So for me, that was going to be my airfare to Australia. So I entered that competition really as a progression of my modelling career.
Lorraine was sent to Miss Universe 1983 with a little knapsack and 2 little cocktail frocks.
My family and my closest friends came to the airport. I had not been out of New Zealand, and there I was flying all the way to St. Louis, Missouri on my own. And I remember just feeling absolutely petrified. And I hopped on the plane. I was crying. I think I cried the whole 12 hours to LA. Miss South Africa, who was my roommate, I always thought that she would win or would definitely be in the top 5.
I think she had such a natural type of beauty. It wasn't the plastic, phony pageant contestant that sometimes we see coming to Miss Universe.
Hello everyone, I'm Lorraine Downes and I'm happy to wish you greetings from New Zealand.
Leading up to that final night, every night there was a function, and one of the functions, maybe 2 weeks before the big night, was a sit-down dinner, and I was seated next to Miss Universe's chaperone. And I just thought, oh, this is interesting. And it was great because I was able to have this wonderful conversation with her. Now, why was she seated next to me? Who knows? What we were very aware of was the media and the newspapers and who was making it into the newspapers. And I remember Julie, Miss USA, she was always in the papers. And so that was sort of, and I remember I did get in the paper twice. I had one goal. It was to get into the final 12. And so I just, I remember when they called my name and I was the first one to be called. And I just thought, oh my gosh, New Zealand is going to be so proud.
And the first name on the list is Miss New Zealand.
Lorraine just kind of stuck in there. I mean, the more you saw her, she had the type of personality that the more you saw her on stage, the more you liked her. The judges probably saw that also and saw that she would make a good Miss Universe.
Miss New Zealand, have you enjoyed your visit to St. Louis?
Oh, it's been wonderful. It's one that I'm never going to forget. And the best thing of my visit has been the people of St. Louis. They have been so friendly and made everyone feel welcome. Thank you.
Nicely put. Thank you.
Then we have this New Zealand girl coming through this beach girl, and there's a freshness to Lorraine that sort of represented the South Pacific, something that was unseen, and I think the judges just simply fell in love with her.
I think in my top 5, Miss Switzerland, she was just so beautiful.
Lorraine had personality, which I felt Miss Switzerland did not.
And in my head, I was thinking, they're going to be back home in New Zealand going, we can't believe she's in the final 5.
We had this vavavoom Miss America, Miss United States standing beside her, and all expectation was that she was going to win. And even Lorraine showed that in her expression, this disbelief. We all had that. Of course, we felt she deserved it, but for her to actually win? Wow.
Miss New Zealand is Miss Universe.
Do recall my boss walking in and going, "Oh my God, darling, she's won!"
New Zealand won Miss Universe. That's like, what?
My mind was blown. She was the epitome of grace and beauty. She held that stage so well, and she was all things glittery and sparkly in my world.
Huge deal when she won. We were all watching then.
I was just, like, my heart was just, it was absolutely amazing.
It was about time. It was about time New Zealand showed their flag.
Hey, we're on the world stage. That's New Zealand.
I was literally beside myself, crying with pride and screaming. I'm sure the neighbors wondered what was going on.
She had a very likable factor, which went in her favor. I mean, you really, really wanted her to win.
It was sort of like a surreal experience because all of a sudden I was being crowned and I was just going through, it felt like I was just going through the motions. So watching it afterwards, it just took me back to that moment straight away. When you look at the footage of me walking up the stairs and sitting in the chair, and then I just get bombarded by all the other girls, the contestants.
I actually find that footage quite disturbing. When you're watching Lorraine, you can actually see it sinking in that she's won. And she was so young.
It was a lot. It was scary. I was escorted off the stage to a small room, and somehow they had found my parents who were in the audience, an audience of 16,000 people. How they found them, I'll never know. But Mum and Dad were there, and I remember the door was closed, and I just remember just falling into their arms, sobbing and saying, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. I'm not the most beautiful girl in the world. They just sat down with me and they just said, Lorraine, they said, you've been given this opportunity. What a wonderful opportunity you've been given. You've got to go and try this. And if in 6 months' time you're not happy, we'll get you home. And of course, they knew I was going to be all right. They knew I was going to be able to do it. And I was just so grateful that they were there. So it's always been the thing that happens to Miss Universe. The next morning, she gets to meet the press.
The new Miss Universe enjoyed breakfast in bed this morning amid cameras and photographers. Miss Downes told reporters when she made it to the final 5, she was enjoying herself so much that she couldn't believe it when she won the title.
It just would have been really lovely to have had someone close to give me some support, someone that I knew and loved. So those first few months were very, very challenging. I got really homesick. As I grew in confidence, I started to really enjoy the work that I was doing, and it just got better and better as the year went through. So during the year, I did get to meet some amazing people, and one of them was Ronald Reagan. We got maybe, I'm going to say, 5 minutes in the Oval Office. And I just remember being really so nervous. You know, here I was standing in the Oval Office with Ronald Reagan. I started that year, and it was a year that was just full of so much growth for me. But it was also a year where I was contracted, I was doing a job, and I had no control over my life whatsoever. A year was long enough. So when the year came to an end, I was so ready to crown the new Miss Universe and to resume my life and to do the things that I wanted to do in my life.
It's been such an intense year that any free time that I got, I just wanted to be by myself. So there really wasn't been any time for any personal life, boyfriends included.
So when she walked in and she handed over the crown a full year after the original contest, I was always amazed at how much she had matured. She just became this incredibly sophisticated woman.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Universe 1983, Lorraine Downes.
She looks like she's walking on the stage of the Academy Awards.
We have king and queen here in Sweden, so for me, she looked like our queen.
I think Lorraine ended her reign at Miss Universe that night with so powerful.
I thought she was such a smashing person. She was glowing, and she was so professional. I really got so impressed with her. And I thought she was such a beautiful role model for the Miss Universe Incorporated and for the role as Miss Universe.
She has a beautiful soul.
She held herself so well.
Very, very proud of Lorraine, and I'm very proud of our friendship.
I finally got to photograph Lorraine when she was turning 30, and she wanted to get back into modelling. She had very short bleached hair and very rock and roll, very cool and very beautiful, and everyone in New Zealand loves seeing her back.
Has she changed? No. Does she look even better now? Of course. The fluff has gone.
My hair, I mean, I just cringe when I look at photographs of me, especially when I won, and my hair, I had teased it up so much. I don't know what I was thinking. Just a little bit more.
Hair and makeup for beauty contests. Less is more? I don't think so.
Back then, we all did our own hair and makeup.
Back then, it was as much as you can possibly pack on. Foundation, blusher, lipstick, eyes, hair.
The pink and the purple makeup and the hot rolled hair and the teasing. We can never go back there. We can't.
We love it. I love it. I mean, you go to a retro party now, everyone wants 80s. Everyone wants those pineapple earrings and the big hair.
I had a little bit of a mishap before I went in for Miss New Zealand. I had a perm on bleached hair, which is a no-no, was in those days, and quite a section of my hair vanished.
They would just make us, like a 19-year-old girl, transform us into these older women.
Oh my God, she had the big blow-dried hair like I had.
And when I look at the pictures, it's so heavy, so caked on, which is so 80s. It's just what we did. And, big heavy eyes and big contoured cheeks.
I actually would like to see it go back to the glamorous days of the 80s. It was fully glamorous. Everything was glamorous in the 80s. It was just, everything was about big, beautiful and bolshy.
Big hair and that. We had to do everything ourselves. When I look back now at the hair,
we didn't have to do our hair. There's no way I would have my hair that big. I have never seen their hair that big. I don't know what they used in that hair. It must have been concrete or something.
The makeup of the 80s is definitely a look that I want it to be left in the 80s.
Can't say that, can we?
It was not a good look.
No.
Was it?
After Lorraine's triumphant win, the Miss New Zealand contest was at fever pitch, and most girls were dreaming of stardom. Sometimes the crownings went a little crazy, especially in 1984.
On this particular night, we were all there. We knew who was going to be first, second, and third. And Peter Sinclair read out the second place given as the first, as the winner of the Miss New Zealand. And we sat there, David and I, and we just sort of looked at each other, and our tushes clenched, and we went, oh.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a most embarrassing task to perform. I've just read the list from the top down instead of from the bottom up. And the new Miss New Zealand 1984 is Miss Auckland, Barbara McDowell.
Peter was brilliant. He'd got himself out of that, but because it was live television, no delays, I'll never forget that. And David will never forget that either.
But then it did happen in Miss Universe and it did happen in Top Model, but it happened here first.
What was remarkable about Barbara is apart from winning Miss New Zealand, 3 years later she comes back as this mature, amazing woman and wins Mrs. World.
The first runner-up is Mrs. Mexico. New Zealand is our Mrs. World of 1987.
One of the most beautiful winners ever. I loved her as a model.
I was delighted because we'd had a number of lovely blue-eyed blondes, and here was this dark beauty, part Samoan, stunning looking.
But as Barbara developed, you must remember she actually got more beautiful.
She was the most amazing role model for people that thought they could never make it. And at that time, there was a lot of prejudice, and there was a lot of, if you've got an olive skin, you can't make it in the industry.
She had that very exotic look, almost like a young Bianca Jagger.
I just remember running up on stage and I put this fur coat on. They all thought I was her mother. It was like running train length behind me on the stage, and I was on TV, national TV with this fur coat on. I was so thrilled for her.
I mean, she'd been such a lovely Miss New Zealand, and here she was now much more worldly, much more confident.
Barbara McDowell winning Mrs. World, that is like, what the heck? We were on a roll for sure.
To me, she's probably one of the most special people that I've ever met through all of us.
It wasn't age they were looking for. They weren't looking for an older woman or a married woman with kids or somebody who's mowed the lawns more or bottled peaches like they said in the paper. They were looking for just perhaps even youth as well. And it was a straight out beauty pageant.
She was hot. I mean, seriously hot for a married woman.
The idea that you are crowned the most beautiful girl in the world, to me, that was always a fantasy.
No, I don't think there is such a thing.
I believe there isn't such a thing as the most beautiful woman in the world. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I think it's incorrect. Someone who won in 1980 possibly would never get anywhere, even into the finals in 81 or 82.
There can be somebody that really represents that moment in time. And that's what really a beauty queen is.
I had a breakfast with all the judges, and the judges told me that it was my personality that won.
Charm has a lot to do with things. You know, you can be, I've met lots of people in life, men and women, men who aren't particularly handsome, but they're very charming. And women, exactly the same. They're not beautiful, but they have an amazing personality, and so they come through as beautiful with their personality.
I did a lot of mall appearances and bookshop appearances with Alison Halls. For some reason we were paired up and it was great fun. We would have a lot of people, young and old, coming to visit, and she'd be signing, I would be signing.
You're constantly working for your sponsors and doing the best you can for them.
It's not just about getting prettied up and getting your makeup done and standing on stage in a nice pretty dress and high heels.
It was so hard because I was thrust into this whole new life, this very sophisticated international life. I was doing things that I'd never ever done before. For example, doing interviews with the media, having to give speeches, and I travelled to 25 countries during that year. So the first couple of months, it was just a huge learning curve.
People thinking that Miss New Zealand isn't hard work, that's probably the most frustrating misconception for me. It would be the most challenging experience I've ever been through by far.
We were on show the whole time, so, there wasn't any time to rest.
You're always having to be up and happy, and
it was definitely a full-time job. It kept me very busy, that's for sure.
The questions and the functions I had to go to, that with the diplomats from all sorts of countries, they really did want you to tell them about New Zealand, and you were really promoting the country.
My job as Miss Universe was to represent the Miss Universe Corporation, and I would be travelling to different countries. I would arrive into a country and I would be working for perhaps a brand, a company. I would be going to dinners, I would be meeting people, having photographs taken, doing charity, fundraising, visiting orphanages.
Lorraine was our Lady Di. She was everything. She was our version of royalty.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Miss New Zealand was the closest we probably got to royalty. You had beautiful people like Miss New Zealand on floats that were waving to the crowds, and the crowds were going wild because that was our celebrity status.
I can relate to what the royal family does because my role as Miss Universe was very similar.
I can relate to it. Oh, I think it's tougher for the royals.
They were better than being a princess.
But it's not as criticised like the royals. No, I know. Oh, listen, you speak like the royals.
I've known Linda for years and she's one of my best friends, but I never knew about her Miss World, Miss New Zealand. She never talked about it.
I do like to keep it a bit quieter.
She's very modest, and that's what I like about her.
A funny story is when I was a photography student in 1986, I used to collect pictures of Linda, and one of my assignments was to copy one for a school project. And I used my sister, and I think I did a pretty good job. Not too bad.
She's just something special.
Before the Miss New Zealand, I actually won the Dolly Cover Girl of the Year. And then I did Face of the 80s, which was great for, your deportment or your catwalk, everything like that. So that was a really good experience, up and down to Auckland for that. And then that just naturally led on to Miss Canterbury, Miss New Zealand, and then going on over to Miss World. At the beginning of my modelling career, I actually had one of those terrible 80s perms, which is quite horrific. So my short hair just stuck, and it just worked.
No Miss New Zealands had ever had short hair up until Linda. So it was very, very modern and very different at Miss World.
Pete Sinclair, he loved saying I look like Marilyn Monroe, so I got that reference a lot.
Linda, I commented before that your face has a kind of Marilyn Monroe quality, the young Marilyn. What is your own favourite actress and why?
Oh, Marilyn Monroe is pretty special, but Joan Collins would have to be the lady.
That night at Miss New Zealand, I didn't think I would win that.
Miss Christchurch, Canada.
It's crazy. It's amazing. All these emotions do go through your head, and you do cry like we all do. I'm not sure why that happens, but it's just overwhelming. And you've got the girls all crowding around, and they're all kissing and doing their thing, and everyone's happy. It's great. And that night is such a blur. You don't expect that it's going to happen to you, and then when it does, it's kind of like, wow, shivers. What have I done? I didn't think so at the time, but when you look back, it probably is quite a big transition. It is a lot especially coming from the small town, it's a lot to take on.
New Zealand's first short-haired winner was jetting off to London, and the world press were already noticing her.
It was crazy. The night before the final, thousands and thousands of people were betting huge money on me, which seems insane. They picked me as one of their favourites.
Linda was the favourite to win that year.
Yeah, my odds were pretty good going by the bookies over there, and the bookies are a big deal over there. My odds were 1 to 2, so I guess I was right up there. Over there, you'd see some of the prints, some of the images and bits and pieces that were being said about you and photos of all the girls, but there was no internet, so you didn't have that same chat that you would have these days. So we were spared all of that, which is really good, because that could be quite nasty.
Another favourite that year was actually Halle Berry, who went on to do pretty well.
Halle was great. Halle got quite a hard time. There was one night where she was actually in my room crying with me because her national costume, it had a sheer bodysuit with strategically placed glitter and sequins and everything, and she was so upset over her outfit. Here I was, the sailor girl, and Halle was in this elegant, glamorous, gorgeous thing, which we all thought looked fabulous on it, but she was in tears, just hating it because the media were all over her. She just felt revealed, and she just did not enjoy it one little bit. I didn't realise at the time, but the TV audience worldwide was like 150 million. And that's huge. Imagine if you actually thought about that before you're going on, and this is a live show. To make top 15 was huge. To get that far is great. I didn't think I would get any further. I thought that was it.
For the first time ever, Miss New Zealand scored the highest out of 78 girls in the preliminary competition. The pressure was on.
I made top 7, so then you had to do this wee interview. And so then that's quite daunting because you're talking about yourself and you have to talk about your modelling and what you've done and what your interests are.
Hello to you, Linda McManus. Now, you've already been on television, haven't you? Tell us about that.
I have. About 4 weeks ago, an American film crew came to New Zealand with a program called Two on the Town, and they travelled all over the world filming at tourist spots throughout the world, good spots to go on holiday or go and see.
You're representing your country, so you just want to do well, not only for you, but for the country. There was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of pressure coming through from friends and different things. You'd talk to people back home and
Oceania's Greater Beauty is Miss New Zealand.
And then you make that final 5 and it's like, it's kind of one of those things you get there and you're like, shoot, I don't want to lose this now. You kind of, that competitive side of you digs in and you're like, yeah, this is quite cool. But then even though you don't win, it's really cool to have got that far. It's a huge experience. 79 people.
Some of the world's most beautiful girls gathered in London's Albert Hall this morning for the Miss World contest. Among them was 20-year-old Linda McManus of Christchurch. She picked up the Miss Oceania title and was the favourite for the overall win.
We was robbed. She didn't win, she came fourth, but she beat Halle Berry, who is now an international, global icon. So that is winning. At the end of the day, who can say that? Who can credit themselves with that? Only Linda McManus.
It was such a great achievement for Linda to get fourth of all those countries. And I'm really proud of her.
To round off 1986, New Zealand won another title, with Helen Crawford winning the Miss Asia Pacific. New Zealand was now a powerhouse in the world of beauty.
The first time I realised that it was important to be representing New Zealand is when I hopped on the plane with my sash, and everybody on the plane, because you had to have your sash on your plane, and I asked them to hang it up. I got instantly taken up to first class, which was brilliant. And I went, I'm representing New Zealand. This is actually quite important. And it was important to New Zealanders. Gosh, I remember being announced in the top 5, and the thought that went through my head was, well, you've come this far, you better win now. And then when they called out that Miss New Zealand was the winner, it was the classic stunned mullet, possums in the headlight look. Bam, it was straight away from the minute the after function that night. No, you can't have that glass of champagne. No, you can't do that. You go and put your crown on. Can you fix your lipstick? This person is your minder, and your minder's stuck with you. I had a lady that was like my mother, and so told me what I had to wear every day, what my schedule was, and literally it got to the stage after months and months that I'd stand behind my hotel door and go, right, smile. And then you could go out, because there was always going to be reporters outside your door. They'd watch every move. You had to be on your 101% best behaviour every second. You would put on, I am now Miss Asia Pacific, and I'm walking out the door. And you'd get home and you can go, I'm taking off my Miss Asia Pacific persona, and I can now sit back and put my feet up and relax, because nobody can see me.
For the lady that couldn't make it last year, Judith Kirk.
Judith is a nurse. She's 21 and she's from Auckland.
My parents flew down to Christchurch, came and watched it. It was glamorous at the time, all those beautiful gowns. I remember that shimmering blue gown. I do remember feeling really old, because I was 21 and I was considered, well, I was one of the oldest in the competition, and I was a nurse. So I actually had a career going, and this wasn't my prime focus. It was a bit of a side gig. Yeah, I look back and go, well, good on you. I remember my knees were knocking, I was nervous. It wasn't really my world, but it was a bit of fun. Everyone's competitive. In the commercial break, when they name the 5 people and you have the commercial break and you go, oh, that's my name. Oh, and those are the 4 other one. One of us will be it. You know, it was a pretty long 3 minutes, and it's live. It was live. I thought Lana would win. She had all the beautiful, 80s hair. I had the little sleek bob. Still got the little sleek bob.
Of course, Jude and Lana were both in it in the same year, both models that I worked with a lot, and they went on to have fabulous careers both in TV and in modelling.
So the late 80s were a time where a lot of us that ended up in television came from cheerleaders, actually. Think of Wendy Petrie, Susie Aitken, or Miss Universe New Zealand, because that was the pool, that was the talent pool that people were looking in, and that's where we were swimming.
It does give women a platform to go into a career that and a world of glamour that they would never, ever ordinarily be able to access.
Anyone who had a bit of spark, I think they asked if we were interested.
I was recently on Celebrity Treasure Island, which was such a great experience, and my name on there, or what I was known for, was being the former Miss New Zealand.
Because of Miss New Zealand, I had a lot of opportunities. I was one of the first presenters when Lotto actually came to New Zealand. I think I did a 6-week stint.
So Miss Universe New Zealand was actually the reason I got into television, because I wouldn't have been exposed.
What made Tracy and Lolly special? Well, that's a hard one for me to say, because they're my very close friends.
They sparkle. They have such a personality. They have very good bodies.
Defy anybody not to love them.
The most glamorous duo, mother and daughter.
Yeah, I always wanted to wear that sash.
I have first-hand knowledge of when they went to Guam for that contest. It was quite remarkable that they were chosen initially.
We won through a photograph that an agency had put forward.
What do you mean? Adelaide just said you're going in the mother-daughter competition. I've sent a photo in, and you're doing it.
I never ever thought my wildest dreams that I'd be in any beauty pageants. My friends, when they find out that we were mother and daughter, I get them asking, well, where was it, and what did you have to do, and where did you come, and all that sort of stuff.
Meet our beautiful contestants.
Kia ora from New Zealand. I'm Lorraine Downes. And I'm her daughter Tracy.
We were fully the favourites.
Well, yes, I really thought we might get into the final 5.
From New Zealand, interior decorator and part-time model Lorraine Downes plans a February wedding. Daughter Tracy has been a professional model since the age of 13.
The media loved us because we were performers. I mean, we had actually the modelling background and everything, so we could work it. We could place ourselves in the right spot at the right time.
And any game show that they put on, we were always picked to be out there in front.
Will the real daughter step up to her mom?
That just filled up the whole screen. I remember that we had to go like face to face like that, and I had to have my hair to the side like that, all big on that side. Then you had to have your hair big on the other side. It was like a big heart.
Our 8th semi-finalist. From New Zealand, Lorraine and Tracy Downes.
Of course, it makes you feel proud and amazing, and actually, at the same time, nervous and worrying because you are representing so many different rounds.
It came over the audio.
Finally, you were emotional to me, which was just like fab.
Tracy, I have never felt so proud as I do this moment. You have been my best friend, and I could never wish for a more beautiful daughter. Don't ever stop being the woman you are. I love you, honey.
Oh, I know.
Well, you had a few tears.
That's what I'm saying. You were just like, and my lovely daughter.
Mother, you are beautiful and giving. All my memories are filled with your devotion to me. I'm so happy you are secure now, Mum. You deserve all the tenderness you have given me all these years.
Did we have to do a talent quiz? We didn't know.
No.
I wonder what our talent would have been.
The true nature of their personality really came out in that contest, and that's what's so wonderful about Tracy and Lowell. There's nothing false about them. What you see is what you get, and it's really quite incredible.
What a combo. I mean, how exciting, how fabulous.
We should have fully won. We were like streaks.
We nailed it, we thought.
But we fully did. Yeah. People always would say to me, why didn't you enter the Miss New Zealand? And
well, actually, I've often wondered that too, because of your experience and everything. Yeah, you would have been a perfect, but for some reason.
Because I wanted to concentrate on my modelling. And you were categorised as either a beauty pageant girl or a serious model.
Beauty queens don't always make models, and vice versa.
So I looked at it a little bit differently. I entered a modelling competition in order to get a contract to a modelling agency in Paris. I was pretty well more keen on earning money than a crown and glory.
This makes perfect sense to me, because this was the time where being a beauty queen became not so fashionable. To say you were a beauty queen was the kiss of death.
I dodged Miss New Zealand, and when the face of the 80s came up, I gave it more thought because there was more possibility. There was a career at the end of it.
The New Zealand Revlon Face of the 80s for 1986 is Lisa Morrison.
It was absolutely amazing winning the Face of the 80s, and that took me to America, to the Model of the World, where I represented New Zealand. I wasn't actually a Miss New Zealand, but I represented New Zealand, and that was such an amazing experience.
I was fortunate enough to be raised in a family where my mum and dad achieved this great balance of raising us kids to believe we were enough without believing we were better than anyone else, or that the world owes you a favour, because it doesn't, and not everyone's going to like you, and not everyone has to like you. But there was one comment left under a video of me which read, "God, why did they choose a Māori Miss New Zealand? They're so ugly, too masculine." That really got to me because they weren't just criticising the way that I looked, they were talking about my whole culture. And my people have worked really hard to place themselves in a position where we are proud of who we are. And if you want to go even deeper than that, I would say there's a large reason as to why there are so few Māori women competing in pageants is because of that underlying cultural belief that non-Indigenous people are superior in some way or more beautiful. As a 30-year-old, what I would say to my 20-year-old self and all the other young girls doing pageants and are dealing with this type of online criticism, the people who matter are the people who are in the arena. And unless you're in the arena with me, tripping, falling over and standing up after making tons of mistakes, then I don't even care what you think. So I arrive in Brazil and it's a 5-star hotel, but right next door is slum, like absolute poverty. And what struck me the most was how no one really cared. It wasn't alarming that there was the rich of the rich and then the poor of the poor, and no one seemed to care. I think a big reason as to why Donald Trump didn't come to Sao Paulo was because it didn't look pretty. What we were highlighting while we were there wasn't what needed to be highlighted. There were a few times that we really got to spend time with the people. And so that was probably the most rewarding part of being Miss New Zealand, was going to those places, meeting those people, meeting those children, and learning those lessons. I never would have learnt what I learnt had I not won Miss New Zealand. I'm grateful for it all.
All right, so Nan, who is your favourite Miss New Zealand then, darling? Of course you. I mean, you know that. Why can I say? How can I say? How can I say anything else?
The Nana granddaughter combination is very strong. They have a very lovely relationship. I keep seeing photographs of Holly and think, oh my goodness, that was Cheryl as a young girl.
I would say that I picked up a lot of inner traits from her and exterior. I mean, everyone says she looks like my mum. So, sorry, mum. My mum's blonde with blue eyes, so...
Holly's mum was actually a finalist in the 1981 Miss Universe New Zealand contest. So Holly definitely got some of those good looks.
Yeah, I think what set me apart is, once I set my mind to something, I'm very competitive and very determined, and I think that came through in the competition. And not only that, I had a company of, how many would have been, 3,000 supporting me, and my boss was in the audience. So I do have that in me. I do have the fight in me. I also couldn't choose the gowns and some of the stuff I took, which, I think that was a big letdown, because I think I would have had a better shot at making, the top overseas if that was the case. I actually think I was quite let down on where I was chosen to go, because if it was somewhere else and I had more time, I think I would have done better internationally, but it was still an amazing experience. I still can't believe you met Donald Trump.
Going to Russia and Donald Trump running the competition.
Miss Venezuela won the year that I was competing. I was only the 11th shortest out of 90, so I wasn't right at the bottom, but I was obviously in the bottom 20%. What did you get out of it? I mean, seriously, what did you get out of it? It brought out the best of my personality. It made me more confident. I think it made me more determined and driven to do what I want to do today.
My favourite Miss New Zealand girl has been Jess Tyson. I think she's very raw and honest, and she is your typical Kiwi girl, but she carries herself so well.
So the one girl that stood out for me during that year for Miss World was Jess Tyson. And obviously she's Miss World Oceania princess. It's a momentous event for Miss New Zealand, because it's been a long time since New Zealand took a crown or got even into the finals.
Gorgeous Jess. I mean, I've worked with her so much as a model, and she's just got it all. She's got the beauty, the height, the body, the hair, the smile, the eyes, and she's just a divine creature. We all love Jess.
When we had the final for Miss World New Zealand, my mum was too nervous to actually watch the crowning because when I had entered 2 years previous, she thought that I should have won, and when I wasn't crowned, she was really, really upset. So she thought, oh no, it's going to happen again. But when she realised that they did crown me as Miss World New Zealand, she was really happy.
I was there the night Jess won, and I remember she came down the end of the runway and she was waving to me. And we had done a lot of photo shoots, and they were circulating all around the world on all these pageant sites. And she was considered one of the major favourites to win Miss World that year.
I think Jess is so beautiful. And I remember when she won Miss New Zealand and I thought, wow, this girl could do it.
I do know that when I was preparing for Miss World that I was working as hard as I could in all of the different categories, whether it be sport, whether it be interview, modelling. I wanted to focus on all of those different areas and do the best I could, and that's how I prepared for Miss World, and I think in the end that ended up, being seen. This year I started my own charity called Brave, which I'm really proud of, and Brave is all about helping young people affected by sexual violence, because when I was a child I was also a victim. I know that here in New Zealand talking about things like sexual harm and things like that is quite welcome. We're a really open country, we're comfortable to talk about those things, but when you're going overseas and there's judges from around the world, I wasn't sure how it was going to be received.
By choosing to own her story, she would have given courage to so many other victims of sexual violence.
That's probably what really got me there to the top. I think as the days got down to it, I remember Deb Lambie, who was one of the judges, she came over from New Zealand to judge the competition, and her and I were sitting in the room, and she told me that I was in for a really good chance. And it's not until that moment where I realised, wow, we could do this, and I could do this for the first time in history of Miss World, that I could be the first Miss World from New Zealand.
I really thought that Jess was going to win and deserved to win.
Good evening, everybody. At the moment, I'm feeling so excited and very proud. Back home, I am a full-time news reporter and presenter at our Indigenous news organisation, Māori Television. And as a reporter, I just love my job, being able to showcase the unique talent and success of Indigenous people.
I was watching live at 3 a.m. in the morning, and she just kept getting further and further along.
New Zealand!
She did so well.
I think if we could get more girls like Jess Tyson and how she developed as a pageant contestant, and maybe she could share her knowledge as well and experience to other aspiring girls.
I like to do the best that I possibly can, and I'm very grateful that I placed in the top 6 at Miss World. But there's always better. You can always do better.
Jess Tyson's just such a beautiful girl, and just amazing that she got that far as well.
She has taken her title and she's run with it.
Jess is the future of where we go with Miss New Zealand, because she's curvaceous, she's part Māori, she's just this most incredible being, incredible woman.
And Jess getting in the top 6 for Miss World, it just proves there is hope for the future of Miss New Zealand.
So I was 16 years old when Miss New Zealand was taken off TV, and that is pretty disappointing, because it's an iconic platform for an iconic position to be on the global stage.
Interesting to know that I was the last year. Didn't know that, actually.
I think there was 2 reasons. I think it was financial, and then I think it was the social stigma.
We were constrained by budgets when other countries such as India and that were just throwing money at these people. They were becoming megastars, and that's why Miss India, Miss Philippines, all of them rose exceptionally, and Miss New Zealand shrank to the back.
The world has changed. Sponsorship, of course, is so much harder, and to put a professional show together now is quite different to all these lovely years that we've had.
Back then, I understand that everyone loved watching Miss New Zealand. These days, people don't really care as much, I don't think.
I'm fortunate enough to remember 60s, 70s and 80s as being the heydays.
That classic beauty that probably was what Miss Universe, Miss New Zealand was aiming for in the early 80s would be totally different right now. We've changed our aesthetics.
New Zealand's a very different country today.
I think we're all aware that actually just physical beauty isn't enough anymore, and that glorifying of a woman's body.
I think it's something that will probably disappear. That it's just one of those things, you know. Things come and go. I think it's a yesterday idea.
I think that's still in the past now. I feel like it's gone underground. Maybe it's just that whole getting judged. I don't know.
We need girls of a high caliber. We need a beautiful girl who knows herself inside and out, is confident. I'm not saying doesn't have any baggage, doesn't have any past.
I feel I could probably choose a Miss New Zealand today who would do really well, because I've sort of kept up on the looks that they're looking for.
We need to go back to the type of girl that we selected in the 80s.
So maybe for Miss New Zealand to be more competitive is to tap the half Filipino girls or those with Filipino heritage who grew up in New Zealand.
I mean, who knows where they're going to find her? She could be on a farm in Cambridge, or she could be in the South Island on the ski slopes.
Why don't we send a size 16, a real plus size model one, not a size 12 that has curves but still looks really slim? What about those beautiful women who are that 14 to size 20? Where are those girls? We're really missing them, and they are beautiful.
I think it's harder to get the calibre of girls interested because it's had quite a bad rap.
I worked with 4 models the other day on a campaign, and I asked all 4, would you ever consider entering Miss New Zealand? And they all said they'd rather die than enter. That was just off limits for them.
Outdated, a bit old-fashioned, and just a bit behind in the times.
I think my uncle would have killed me if I had gone into Miss New Zealand.
If I was young again, I'm not sure if I would do it. You know, that's my feeling.
I would do it all again.
I met my husband because I was Miss New Zealand. We were married for 50 years, and life's been very good to me. So I would definitely do it all again. All thanks to Miss New Zealand.
Well, it's a golden opportunity. You know, in my time, it was a golden opportunity. And you grow as a person with it. It gives you enormous confidence. And in that regard, it's a win-win. So maybe I would. Maybe the answer is yes.
Miss New Zealand's not shown on TV anymore, but it's shown on the internet, which is the biggest platform to view anything.
You could definitely find a Miss New Zealand on Instagram. There are so many girls out there, so many talented girls out there.
Let's get behind our national icons and let's create someone new.
Because we are involved in the industry, we would love nothing more to have full-length pageant, but I don't think it will happen.
You need to have support from your country. It's too damn expensive and no one can earn any money doing it these days. And that's the biggest problem we have. And why do you think Venezuela wins it? Because someone's behind it and they put money in, and these girls go over there and they've got the best of everything.
There will always be a relevance for acknowledging beauty around the world, but what that will be, I've really got no idea. It's going to change, I think, on a continual basis.
The feminist 54-year-old would say, I don't really like judging women at all on the way they look.
Basing it off a gender, basing it off purely beauty is really archaic and not modern. And I think if it is to continue, if it is to stay relevant, and let's face it, that's the most important thing. If it's going to go ahead, it's got to be relevant.
I don't know that it will come back on TV the same.
I don't even know whether I want to watch them. I'd rather watch Eurovision if there was a toss-up between Eurovision and a beauty contest. They're both as mad as each other in some respects.
A couple of years ago, there was one on, and we flicked it on, and it's just kind of a weird feeling, I think, now. I sit there and I go, oh gosh.
I do not want to see it back on TV. It will just never go back to those magic days of the 80s.
The worst thing that we can do is have it on TV and have it not being aired properly, or strange performances or things like that make it look even worse than what people think it already is.
I think there was far too much focus put on putting Miss New Zealand back on TV and lost focus on all the other important stuff.
It's never televised here in Australia.
If it really was the most beautiful girls in the world, then it would be different, maybe a little more interesting.
We would all like to achieve world peace, but it's not going to come about by a beauty contest.
I just don't think young people are interested anymore.
If they're about giving women an opportunity to talk and be themselves, I'm all for it. If it's just based on how you look, I think we've gone past that.
Are we always a Miss New Zealand for life?
Absolutely. It's quite unfair, but people expect that you're going to look the same, behave the same.
It's such an iconic brand that once you become Miss New Zealand, you've almost got it for life.
I still get people when I'm introduced as Lorraine Downes, someone will say, "You won Miss Universe."
We want to remember those really beautiful women and those really beautiful moments. So yes, it's something that they have to live with.
I'm still very, even at my age now, still very aware I was Miss New Zealand.
Elaine will always be famous. She's still got the most amazing look, and wherever she goes, people recognise her.
I've always tried to live up to the title, and of course being constantly asked, was I Miss New Zealand? Yes, it stays with you forever, I think.
You can hear a little buzz around the restaurant. That's Miss New Zealand.
I'll be somewhere and give my name and they'll be chatting. Then I get this sort of cock of the head and they'll go, do I know you from somewhere? Or your name seems familiar, especially if my maiden name comes out. They do suddenly go, I remember you from somewhere. Where do I know you? I'm like, no.
It's a bit like being an actor. You get labelled for your best movie. Well, that's possibly their best moment in New Zealand public history.
Still at the parties, my friends are still introducing me as Miss Universe New Zealand from 2011. And I'm like, guys, it was 10 years ago. Like, let it go. They're like, it's so cool. And I don't know when I stopped believing that it was.
Still emotional, very emotional about it, and very proud. Well, it's so long ago. I think, how did I do so much in such a short time, and how lucky I was to have that opportunity.
I think it's like another world sometimes.
And you can't really believe it. You think really it's like a past dream.
I hope they all know how loved and respected they were and are by the public now, and how good they were, and how proud we are of them, and how proud they should be of themselves.
People still remember me winning Miss Universe. It blows me away. It blows me away that people still remember it. And, it was 38 years ago. It doesn't define me, but it's part of my history. Absolutely.
Take a pinch of passion and a dash of dare, a teaspoon of warm light and a cup of care, tablespoon of charisma, 3 cups of knowledge, sprinkle of grain and grit, an ounce of what your mama thinks. Come alive with Madame Rouge, don't matter what you choose, decorate with their stick, don't worry about what others think, 'cause it's good to be a woman, yeah, it's good to be a woman. I'm a lover, not a fighter, yeah, it's good to be a woman. Yeah. Try to blind pick your life and be surprising, give charm and character, be so beguiling, alluring and hypnotic, breathing you hot topic, but always know where you're from and all your friends who've gotten on. Call a life and gallow, let go of all your worries, find your spontaneity and your sensuality, 'cause it's good to be a woman, yeah, it's good to be a woman, yeah, it's good to be a woman, yeah, it's good to be a woman. 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 Take a bunch of daffodils and some sweet freesias, a few stems of roses, whatever your eye pleases, 'cause life's a bouquet, a mixed bag of beauty.
Are you allowed to say who's your favourite Miss New Zealand?
Ooh, see that girl, watch that scene, dig it, the dancing queen.
Make it real, darlings. Cheers to that.
This is painful.
Oh,
Get out. Oh, stop it. That's so bad. Don't use that. Please don't use that.